Hi, guys. John, the firearms instructor, and welcome to our live podcast from the range. We're calling it a podcast now because we are podcasting on our YouTube studios. We are on our Facebook page. If you don't know who I am, my name is John Johnson. I'm the owner and operator of a firearms training facility in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida, which we specialize in you. We specialize in the first time shooter. We specialize in people who want to learn how to shoot a pistol and we're here for you and you only. So we started this channel many years ago for the purpose of getting comfortable with around people and getting you comfortable around a firearm, and that is what we do. So we have a few people on that are already tonight, which is pretty exciting each week to see people popping on to watch our podcast every evening. These are live podcasts, so they are video, but you can actually visit the YouTube music channel and look us up, and we have the audio podcast of this as well. There's 27, and this makes 28 editions that we have available. This is a good one tonight. This is a good one. This is a request from one of our subscribers on why they didn't really explain if they were a male or a female, but I assume with the name that they were a female, why they're shooting low, and I'm going to give you a bunch of tips why. But before we do that, I want to make sure you guys can hear me loud and clear. So if you can, go ahead and comment loud and clear, it'd be awesome. And then if you are on here for the very first time, I would like you to tell me where you're from. Hopefully, you are uh, a, a subscriber. But if you haven't subscribed, I highly recommend you subscribe to our channel. Maybe you should hit the bell icon, the like button on our YouTube channel. Would be awesome. That would help tremendously. You know, we had a great week this week so far. It's been only 2 days, but we've got a good base of customers. We had some kids today that were thank you, Chris Haas. We appreciate you saying loud and clear. Thank you, Mark J. Thank you for being here as well. Thank you very much. Hello, Mark J. Yes, so we had some kids today. That was pretty awesome. We had father from Baltimore, New York, Buffalo, New York, and he brought his two kids in, number 9 and 8. Little Jack, Jack was my father's name, so I can't forget Jack. I think it was Jack and Nathan was the two little kids. We usually had them shoot at 22. Over the weekend, we had our kids shootout, our Valentine's kids shootout. That was very successful. We set up some reactionary targets, some balloons, some tin cans, and things like that, and taught them a little bit of security, a little bit of safety, and to have fun with the firearms. That was kind of an awesome way to bunch of kids teach those kids to shoot, teach those kids to respect the weapon and not fear it. A pretty awesome weekend. Parents, thank you very much for bringing your children to us and trusting us. So the the ability to do these lives is getting easier and easier and easier because of the YouTube thing. They just opened the podcast thing, so that's kind of a cool little feature for us. It does give us the opportunity to uh, meet a lot of new people and everything else. We're doing a lot of stuff with our non-resident concealed carry. We're meeting people from all over the United States for that as well. One of our subscribers from Ohio, I think, is coming this next week. We're going to try to do a little uh, training class with him to see how that goes. He's one of our members through Facebook as well. So I mean through YouTube, which is kind of cool and neat. We are going to start this podcast this evening talking about why we shoot low and left. And I know we've covered this in many videos. I know we've covered it in a lot of different stuff. So as we talk here tonight, you can kind of let me know how you're shooting. Are you shooting low? You're shooting high? You're shooting right? Or what's the deal? And keep in mind, guys, we are an active store where you may hear some gunshots today that are coming from the range. You may hear the door open and the doorbell ring and all that stuff. We are active. We got guys working here that's going to help people shoot on a regular basis. But it won't bother us very much. Sometimes the doorbell will go off though. So let's go ahead and add to the stage. Let's go ahead and remove that one banner. Why do I have that up there? I don't know. Okay, boom. Hide that. Hide that. There we go. And let's go ahead and make this widescreen. There we go. I don't know why that keeps coming to the back. Let me get this rid of this real quick. Sorry, guys. Give me a second here. I'm about dangerous when it comes to this stuff. Boom, boom. Okay. Get that away. Get that. No, that's not the one I wanted. It's this one, the one I wanted. And hide that and make this full screen. I apologize, folks. All right. Boom. There we go. And now we're going to add this to full screen. There we go. It's not kicking my butt today. It's kicking your butt, but it ain't kicking my butt. And then we're going to go to full screen if we can. Boom. 10 tips for stop shooting low with a handgun by yours truly, Mr. John G. Johnson, the firearms trainer. Majority of the time, a left low or low in right impact or a right and right-handed and low and left is normally anticipation as well as pulling the trigger, and there's a couple things we can do to stop this and become more accurate with a pistol. So as we do each screen, I will explain a little bit, and then if obviously we'll go back to comments here in a few minutes and see if what we have as far as people talking about what they actually do when they shoot. Go ahead and comment below and let me know if you're a low and lefter or you're high and righter or you are dead center impact all the time. I mean, there are some people on here that would be doing that. So let's start out with what causes a lot of the inaccuracy is improper grip. Now, this is a picture of the proper grip. This is the two thumbs forward grip. It aligns a strong hand high on the backstrap, placing the sport hand webbed in a space between the trigger. Now, I know you've seen a lot of people that have taken their non-dominant hand. This blue gun you're seeing here is a copy of a Glock, and you can imagine if you took your pointer finger, your index finger, and grabbed a hold of that front trigger well, you would tend to pull this gun to the left because that would what would happen. But if you notice how he's got his wrist at an angle, he's locked out his wrist as much as he can, and he's going to make sure he's gripping as high as he can. Now, if you can imagine the last time you shot a pistol, one of the challenges most people have is they got to make sure there's no thumb pressure. Had a guy last week, he was continuously shooting to the left, and I said, "Are you applying pressure with your thumbs?" He goes, "Nope, nope, I'm not doing it." And then I kind of stuck some tape on the side of the weapon and let him do it, and he was touching that tape, so I could tell you he was thumb pressing as much as he could. So we pulled his thumbs away, had him to almost take them off, and it solved his right shooting. Majority of right-handed students shoot low and left because of trigger engagement and how the weapon is lined in the hand. You almost want to make sure the gun's going down your arm as much as possible. So, one of the first tips I would look at if someone's coming to me and saying, "Why am I shooting left?" I'd look at my grip first. Now, how do we know a proper grip? Well, this is a great picture here, but there are plenty of videos that you can watch on our YouTube channel or throughout YouTube, even if you don't use ours, of the two thumbs forward grip. This is the combat grip or the two thumbs forward grip. And where you get all your power, all your strength, and all your control from is that non dominant hand. And your dominant hand is just along for the ride. So it's a slow, continuous press back of the trigger, and that'll help us tremendously become more accurate with a pistol. Now, if you look at this the way he's looking at this, can you tell his impact would be low? Do you know why his impact would be low? Now look at the top of this gun and look where your front post is versus your back post. Is it already at an angle? If it's already at an angle, then he's not going to shoot low to begin with. We need to make sure this gun is level. And at that point in time, we need to make sure we use our waist to aim the gun, not our wrist. And we can tell this guy's he's doing his best to lock out his wrist, but he's got the gun in an angle that's going to put him shooting a little low to begin with. All right. So number one, it would be grip. Let's go to the next screen. Number two is proper trigger control. Avoid jerking the trigger or applying too much pressure. Utilizing the center pad of your index and gradually increasing pressure to activate a smooth, steady trigger engagement. There's what's considered trigger travel. That's how much the trigger moves backwards before it engages the sear to make the firing pin hit the bullet. But a lot of times people get carried away and pop that trigger or push it really hard, really fast. And that really impacts the gun a lot. It causes a lot of inaccuracy because you're pulling the trigger, not pressing the trigger. We talk about a cadence a lot of times, and that's I get students and once in a while they don't really they just can't get the concept there. So I kind of give them a vision. Imagine you guys are looking at a scale at this point in time. And one of the sides of the scale, doesn't matter which one, has a 5 pound weight on it. And imagine if I took a same pound weight, 5 pounds, and dropped it on the other side of the scale at any height at all, what would happen? Well, that other 5 pounds that weighted to the other side would come off that slide in aggressive mode, right? It may not fall directly off of it, but it's going to give you a bounce, right? Well, that's a pull of a trigger. Now imagine if I took that 5 pound weight, let's say it was full of sand, for instance, and I cut the bag open and I began to pour the sand on the side that had no weight. Sooner or later, the other side of the scale would begin to lift. And if we put 5 pounds on one side and we poured 5 pounds on the other, once it got to a point, it would level completely out. This is what I want you to vision the trigger press. The trigger press itself is what we want to do to be accurate with a pistol. Now, keep in mind in high defense situations and all this stuff goes out the window. But if you want to be accurate with a pistol, you cannot pull a trigger, you must press a trigger. And how do we press a trigger? With a slow, continuous uh, engagement of the trigger until the weapon fires, and that's considered we call it cutting when the trigger cuts. And then you repeat that process while keeping the gun level. A lot of people tend to pull the trigger and in turn they pull the weapon. And a lot of ladies who don't lock their wrist out very well when they engage the trigger and it has any kind of weight to the system, like if you're shooting a Glock, for instance, has a heavy trigger engagement. When you engage that trigger back, your wrist tend to want to loosen and let that front post drop a little bit, and that becomes one of the issues. So continuous, slow engagement of the trigger will solve most times will solve a lot of the low shots, because what tends to happen with low is the gun has to be at that angle to shoot at that angle. We preach this every week, every day in class. A level pistol shoots level, no questions asked. It's never the gun. 99.8% of the time, it's never the gun. It's the student. All right. So number two, trigger control. I bet you guessed that already, though, correct? And number three is proper proper stance. The isosceles stand, like he's standing here in this parking lot. He's got both feet shoulder width apart. He's bouncing on his knees, doesn't have his knees locked down. He's leaning forward just a little bit, get his nose over his toes. And at that point in time, he's relaxing his shoulders and leaning forward just enough to get change that weight. And that weight, what tends to happen is you change your weight from the balls of your heels to the balls of your toes, and moving your weight to your toes allows you to lean forward just a little bit and give you that stable stance. We always talk about a foundation. The foundation starts at the gun and goes all the way to the feet. And if you have one foot back from another, which we see that stance an awful lot, or we see somebody standing and leaning backwards, how many women go to the range and shoot because they're worried about that casing hitting them in the forehead, that they lean backwards when they shoot? You cannot lean backwards, ladies. You got to lean forward. We always talk about wrist and booty. That's what you girls got to do. And then locking out that wrist by driving that dominant hand and pulling back with your non dominant hand, which fires your back muscles, and then lean forward just enough to get your nose over your toes, and you'll control that weapon. These three things: grip, stance, trigger engagement, are the foundation you need to make a gun level. And the more the weapon is level, the easier it is to engage, the easier it is to control the weapon, and the easier it is to follow through the next shot, the next shot, the next shot. Instead of pulling a trigger, you're pressing a trigger. I think we talked a couple weeks ago. The shot should surprise you. We have people coming all the time and they're saying, I need to adjust these sights because their sights are, this gun's shooting low and left. And then we go back there and we put the gun in our hand and we shoot exactly where it needs to go, because they are shooting low and left, not the pistol itself. And it's about a pull of a trigger versus a press of a trigger. This is very, very common for people to look at the pistol thinking, what's the pistol doing wrong? When it's technically what's the student doing wrong. All right. So once we've got the grip and the stance and the trigger control, we got to find this sight alignment. This is kind of a blown up effect of what I'm trying to give you. And this was taught to a lot of people many years ago. But if you kind of think about it more than anything, it's about your front post and your back post being level. Now you can imagine if this was your back sights and your front sights, and there is no separation between the front post and the back post, this this front sight system would be level. Now imagine that front sight being lifted higher than your back sight, then you're going to shoot high. And then vice versa. If it's shoots low, you're going to shoot low. And this is where we talked about that guy earlier, that the blue gun was pointed at an angle because he didn't have his top of his back sight and the top of his front sight being level. A sight alignment focuses on the alignment of the front and rear sights for precisely. The top and the front sight should be level with the top and rear sight, creating a sight line. Now, this is important because a lot of people tend to bend their wrist when they aim a pistol. You bend your wrist to aim a pistol, you're already got the gun in an angle, and that's where it's going to go, whether it's high or low. A lot of people, when they first start out, they don't focus on those back posts, those back sights. They focus on the front sight and shoot high all the time. And that becomes one of the issues that we got to get you into. It's a three dot system. Oh, Glocks have a box and dot system, but no matter what it is, whether it's a box and dot system or a three dot system, it's the top of the sights need to be level with each other. And that proper negative space, look the right and left of your front sight. You don't see it tighter on one side and looser on the other. It's complete negative space in between, which will physically give you what you want is that level gun. Now, obviously, you can't focus on a ton of stuff at one time. Your eyes won't do it. So here's what I'll give you a little tip. If you are focusing on your front post and your front post only, your sight system, whether you're looking at like a dot or whatever it is, or a circle, or a silhouette of a guy or an X or whatever it is, and then your back post should be blurry. Those 2 should be blurry, and your front post should be crystal clear. You should be able to tell me everything about it. That's a proper sight alignment. And then we're gonna get the sight picture here in a second because this is gonna help you. This is focusing it all around. This is elementary stuff, but you gotta get it all together. It's a full system, guys. You can't lose one of these because one of these will cause you to be off. All right. So here we go, sight picture. Now, I'm sort of showing you what I was telling you about. We look at the back sight, the target itself, look at it. It's blurry. And we focus on that back post, right? Look at those 2 dots. They're blurry, right? But look at that center post, right? The front post. Look how bright and clear that is. That's kind of what we're looking for. And as we focus on that front sight and let it float on the target, and this is what's called 6 o'clock hold. It's not dead center. It's a little bit below the center post. And if it's a little bit below the center post, this is called 6 o'clock hold. This will give you consistent point of aim and it will maintain a consistent point of aim. And at that point in time, when you slowly cut that trigger, with a slow cadence, proper stance, proper grip, and just cut that shot very slowly and don't let it move off of your picture, then that bullet will impact exactly where you want it to. And again, we talk about sight pictures, maintaining a clear view of your target by superimposing and aligning of the sight on it. Equal space between the front sight and the rear notch, which is the front post and back post. This here is what we're trying to find, and most people try to focus on everything at one time, and this is what causes our highs and lows and rights and lefts when you're impacting the trigger with a pull versus a press. Maybe when you're standing a little weird or you don't have the proper grip or you're squeezing too hard with your right hand versus not squeezing hard enough with your left hand. Remember, your right-handed students, they're impacting, they're controlling the weapon with not their dominant hand, it's their non-dominant hand. And when you're thinking about as someone who's left-handed, they need to focus on their non-dominant hand, which would be the right hand, to control the weapon. It's only math, guys. If you think about it, that proper grip I showed you earlier, 4 fingers are holding on the gun with your non-dominant hand. With your dominant hand, it's only 3 fingers. And math tells you 3 is smaller than 4. So you could think your power is going to be stronger with 4 fingers than it is 3 fingers. So number 5, sight picture. All right. So, people always ask, well, do I need to hold my breath when I shoot? Do I need to kind of get hold and exhale and inhale? I'm not sure in a short distance of a firearm, let's say less than 50 yards, that breathing is going to impact anything. Now, I do have a lot of students who come here when they're first starting to shoot a pistol. I have to remind them to breathe because they get a little anxious because they haven't shot a pistol before and they hold their breath and then they look at me after 5 shots and they're red as they're red as can be because they held their breath and I got to remind them they got to breathe a little bit. You got to breathe. But if you look at these pictures, how this trigger and placement is impacting it as much as anything else. If you got your trigger too far out, it's going to impact to the left a little bit. And if you get your 2 finger too far in, you at the crease, you may cause it to run to the right a little bit. And then if you have it just about right in the middle, then you're going to be able to. But if you look at the gun in their hand, what the challenge you say, Matt, and I kind of told you about this before, we need to make sure that that pistol is going down my arm. So if you look at the first one that shot the closest to the dot, that pistol is going right down the arm. The other one next to it is going over the knuckle, which would cause the bullet to impact to the right just a little bit. And if you look, the other one's over the wrist a little bit more than it's over down the arm, and that's impacting to the left. So, what causes the left is more trigger engagement how the gun's seating in your hand, how you're pressing the trigger, not pulling the trigger. There's not one thing we could say this is what's causing that. But you can see as we start laying this out, there's a lot of little things that are causing this pistol to do what it needs to do. This is why it's so important for you to get help, whether you get with us and then come here and do a training class with us, or get with any certified instructor that can support you and get you feeling that you can handle and understand what you're doing wrong. This is the thing about shooting. Shooting is not complicated. It's not complex. You know, it's more in. I got to put it all together. It's the fine things. Shooting's not complicated. It is complex because there are little tiny moving little things we got to do, and one thing can cause you to miss. And you can see that as you build your future, you can see when you feel a good shot. This is why we recommend that you shoot 5 rounds at a time, because with 5 rounds at a time, when you're done with those 5 rounds, you can go in, look at the target, and see what did I do wrong, and try to figure it out as best you can. Majority of the time, without having somebody who's been around for a while to show you what you're doing wrong, it becomes a little more challenging for you to see where the problems are. But you can see where if I were to say hold your breath, exhale a little bit at longer distances, I could see that being a challenge. But at short distances, you're best off gently pressing the trigger and not jerking it or anything else like that. Let the shot surprise you, and you'll get a better shot group when you keep them together like that. You know, a lot of times people say, "Well, it can be the trigger." Yeah, it can be. You could imagine if you got the old Smith and Wesson SDVs. Those SDVs had a hellacious trigger on them. But, they were a continuous heavy press trigger that went all the way to the back. There was no hardly any reset, and you had to be very careful keeping that gun level while you were engaging that trigger. Once you got that trigger back to a certain point, it would cut, but it was a heavy trigger, and those heavy triggers do cause pistol manipulation like a light trigger would not, right? You can imagine a double action revolver versus a single action revolver, right? Take a double action revolver and pull through double action. You have to really pull back that trigger and get it back, keep the gun level until it cuts. But if I reached up and cocked that hammer, and then all of a sudden we have the very lightest trigger pull we can have, you're going to be more accurate with that pistol because it is a light trigger engagement. So, number 6, breathing techniques. Practice taking slow, controlled breaths. Exhale, pause briefly, and gently squeeze the trigger. Again, I'm not sure breathing control is the best overall advice. I would tell you that the later part of this, exhale, you got to breathe because that's one thing that if you're trying to hold your breath, you're gonna tend to uh, uh, cause yourself a little bit more stress, but gently squeezing the trigger, minimize any jerking movements. Again, smooth trigger engagement will keep the gun level. All right, let's go to the next slide. A follow through. This is one of those things that I see on a regular basis that people do not do is they what we consider called prairie dogging. They will cut the shot and then lift their head up to see where the impact was. And this always causes those bullets to do some crazy stuff. You know, follow through is one of those things that, like anything, whether it be archery or any kind of sport that you need to make sure you follow the impact. This is one of those things that will really keep the gun level at all times. Continue aiming at the target even after firing and maintain a proper sight alignment. Avoid anticipating the recoil and jerking the gun downward. And this is where people tend to get into a habit forming of pulling the trigger and then looking up over the pistol to see where they've shot, and then they go back down on the pistol. And remember, every time you move this pistol out of your line of sight, into your line of sight, out of your line of sight, in your line of sight, you are coming off that horizontal and vertical line that we try to practice on as much as possible. Because that horizontal line is the line between your eyes. And that's where the gun really needs to be. And then that vertical line is over your dominant eye. I am right handed and right eye dominant. I want that pistol to be over my right eye as much as possible. And I will turn my chin just enough to get my eye and my weapon lined up together. And if we play that enough and use the tip of our finger to engage the trigger, not pull the trigger, but press the trigger and don't anticipate the recoil. Just slowly press it, like we talked about that scale. Let the gun pop, then line up your sight again, let it pop, let it sign up again, and then you got to keep that gun more level. The more level the gun stays during the shot requirements, during the shooting, the less chance you have to do to manipulate the gun to move it off your vertical and horizontal line. Standardly, if we're looking at this target, at me looking at you with a yellow gun there, uh, if you can see, even that pistol at that point in time is a little lower than my eye. And because I'm pointing it at the camera, that's what we're visually seeing. But you notice it is over my dominant eye. And that's where we need to be. Versus if I were to take that gun and sling it over my nose, that changes my angle. And then at that point in time, if I was turning around and facing the other way, I would be impacting left anyways. And there's where the impact of the left comes. Dominant eye must marry with weapon and keeping it out in front of you. And this is the key thing that we teach people all the time. Marrying the weapon and the eye together, using the tip of your finger to engage a trigger and slowly pressing it. Boom, the gun will cut right where you need. When you start trusting your line of sight, when you start trusting, when you point this weapon out, it's going to go where you're pointing the weapon. And then it becomes a lot easier for you, right? And you're going to feel uh, that gun stay in that horizontal and vertical line. So number 7 is follow through. Make sure you're always following through. Don't prairie dog. That's what we call that all the time. Don't prairie dog. Look over the target to see where you're impacting, because when you do that, you start yourself over again. All right. So you could practice reset. Reset's one of those things that you don't really need to shoot a reset, but I wanted to kind of put this in here because we have done a video on reset, and a lot of guns like the Glocks and the Smiths all have resets. Danny, you okay? Yeah. So sorry about that. It was customer front. Trigger reset allows the trigger to reset fully before the next shot, releasing your finger. You good? You need anything? Okay. Oh, okay. Releasing your firearm. So the idea you have what's called trigger travel, then you have trigger depress, and you have prep point. And what tends to happen with the reset is you're going to take all the slack out of that trigger until it meets resistance. And after you prep the trigger, which at that point in time, there's a lot of guns that have very easy walls. In other words, the actual trigger will hit a hard wall, and anything past that point, the weapon will cut. And then there are guns like the Glock that have a heavy trigger which loads, and once it gets back to the far wall, the weapon will cut. If you hold it on that back wall and slowly let the trigger come forward, you will hear a small click. And that small click will allow the trigger to reset enough that you'll be able to engage the trigger engagement of the trigger pin, the firing pin. And then at that point in time, uh, you only have to let it come that little bit up to reset the trigger again, reset the trigger again, reset the trigger again. and this gives you a tighter grip. Now, when do we shoot reset? Never. Maybe bullseye shooting. And if you really want to get to a point where you're really, really super accurate with a pistol, you need to run the trigger with the full engagement of the trigger. This will help you feel it a lot better. There's a lot of students that come to and shoot reset all the time, and you know who you are. Uh, don't do that because reset all the time, that's not a natural thing you're going to do. And it puts you in a weird position where you're only hearing that click all the time. Now, I've shot reset, I have not shot reset. I would tell you, understanding trigger travel is the most important thing. I could put any gun in my hand. After I shot it 5 times, I know where I need to take this trigger to make that gun cut. And this is where, if you kind of get your head around, that's where we need to get our education over, right? So trigger comes back, it loads. At a certain point, it's going to get a resistance, and then it'll pull right through, and then the weapon will cut. Now, if we're slowly engaging this trigger back, we're going to start to understand how much pressure I can put on this trigger before the weapon will fire. And that itself is an education that needs to be done with every weapon you own. Because sooner or later, you may be asked to shoot somebody else's weapon, and you can do that same travel trick with anything. Don't even have rounds in it or anything else like that. You can take the magazine, take the rounds out of it, rack the slide, and begin to slowly engage it back. The more we engage that trigger back out of the trigger travel to resistant point to fully trigger depress, which makes the gun cut. There are 3 stages of all triggers. You just need to figure out what your weapon has. Um, Again, in a high defense situation, no one's shooting reset. No one's doing any of that stuff. Yeah, trigger reset allows the trigger to reset fully before your next shot, without releasing the whole trigger. If you don't shoot the trigger reset, you're releasing the trigger for a full travel every time you engage a trigger, which is okay. Don't get me wrong. It's like shooting a revolver double action all the time. They make single and double action semi-automatic pistols. And if you shoot the double action of a semi-automatic pistol, that trigger engagement could be 7 to 10 pounds. Now imagine shooting a semi-automatic pistol, 10 pounds, 10 pounds, 10 pounds. Sooner or later, you'll start to understand it and you'll be accurate with it. But with a double single with a semi-automatic, the first one's 10 because that's sort of the safety on the gun. Because they have decockers on them, they really don't have safeties. There is a red button that shows a safety, but it's a decocker. And what it does, if you rack that slide and put one in the chamber, the slide is back, the hammer is back. We don't want to leave that on our counter with the hammer back. So there's a button on there that's called a decocker, and it decocks the weapon to a point where it will be a hammer down on a live round. And then if bad guy came in or you're at the range, you need to shoot that first one with the double action trigger, and all the rest of them will single action triggers. And the single action triggers could, if let's just calculate estimation. If the double action on a Sig 226 is 7.5 to 8 pounds. A single action, it could be in the fours. It could be in the fives. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a very light trigger pull, which will make you twice as accurate. Like the 92 FS from Beretta. I mean, that's a great overall piece. 5-inch barrel. First trigger pulls awful long. All the rest of them are going to be short. I mean, that's why it was issued to the military a long time ago compared to the 1911 45 ACP. That's single action only. That means that weapon has to be cocked and locked to be carried, and you're not only going to get 8 rounds in that. Most of your 1911s are 8 rounds. They do make some double stack 1911s, but there's a lot of learning ability. When you go pick that gun up, that hammer has to be back for the weapon to fire. You could cock it when you need it, but if you're gonna carry it in a holster, you're gonna carry that gun cocked and locked. You're not gonna cock it when you need it or rack it when you need it. Would put you behind the 8 ball. Bad guys aren't gonna say, "Hey, 10 minutes from now, I'm gonna rob you. Make sure you're ready for it." That's why the Glocks and the Smiths and the Tauruses that are double act that are um, striker fires are a lot easier for newbies to get their hands on and work through. Dry firing is a great drill that you can do on a regular basis. This is called the penny drill. This penny drill, I've done this with. I actually did a video where I took a casing of a 9 millimeter and put it on top of the head of the uh, slide of a Glock 19 and pull the trigger. But this is the penny drill. It's a good way to get your trigger engagement. Slowly press the trigger without making that penny wobble. There are a lot of different tools and a lot of different stuff out there in the market to get you to get comfortable getting that trigger back in a slow cadence that would not allow the weapon to pop or move or do anything. And you can physically really see how much manipulation you're doing it. Have one of your buddies or pals load your magazine and then hand it to you and let you you may not know how many rounds you got in there and you'll watch yourself. I've done this to students all the time where I'll take a magazine and I'll stick it in the weapon and I'll rack the slide, which I really didn't rack the slide. I racked the slide, but I didn't put the magazine all the way in. And then let them go ahead and begin to cut that trigger and watch that gun dip a good a good 6 inches. And they're, "Oh my god, I didn't realize I was doing that." Yeah. You don't know that you're pulling the trigger until someone shows you or you see it. And once you've seen it a couple times, then when I'm in the back working with students, and it's neat here at the range because when you have a bullet hit our steel in the back, we have a steel plate system in the back, and when that bullet is level, it makes a ding noise. It dings like you're hitting steel plate in the out in the yard. You know what I mean? If you're in the range, but if you shoot at an angle, that steel does not ding as much, and that's kind of that pull that we talk about. People pulling the trigger versus pressing the trigger. So spending some time understanding the trigger travel with dry firing techniques is a great tool. Works on there's a lot of, Manus. We did a full video on the Manus system. We have the Manus system here. I did 2.5 weeks of the Manus system. I don't think it was that bad of a deal, but you got to make sure you have a 19. Yeah, you got to have a rail on your weapon. They do make them now. You don't have to worry because it goes on the bottom of the magazine. I don't like dry firing as much without physically having any kind of bullet to tell you something because technically dry firing is great and wonderful, but full firing of the gun, going through the recoil management is so important because all of this stuff together, not one of these things is going to solve your problem. It's all of them are gonna solve your problem, and you gotta put each one of them together. And most likely, with most students that we deal with on a regular basis, they're not doing everything wrong. They're doing a lot of stuff right. It's just the little things that are causing the manipulation and problems. And there becomes more of the challenge than anything else is getting there. But if you ever tried this here, it looks like it'd be simple, but it's not. That penny will wobble and fall very quickly. All right. And then last but not least is practice, 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 practice. Remembering to master a handgun takes time, dedication, keep practice, analyzing your shot, making the necessary adjustments. And this is where I can tell you, listen, if you're on this live tonight and you're in your area and you're nowhere near us, I would highly recommend you go to the NRA or you go to United States Concealed Carry Association, put in your zip code and find a qualified instructor. Spend the money, spend the time working with the instructor. How do you pick a good one? You talk to them. You listen to them. You look at the reviews. You go in the store. Some like we're very lucky that I was able to, my this thing fell in my lap many years ago, and I was lucky that I was able to get it. My passion was for training, and I wanted to build this whole training facility, build members, work all that stuff together, and it came to fruition. We're very fortunate. We able to do it. Uh, But, the instructor part of this business is the thing I love the most. I love taking somebody who is, sometimes they're completely afraid of the gun. They just assume they've lived their whole life being told that that firearm's gonna do something that, they just don't do, guys. A firearm is just a tool, and that tool needs to have a craftsman, and once you've got somebody that can hold your hand through the process and get you comfortable running the gun, you don't need to be a muscle man to run a gun. You don't need to be, Wonder Woman. You just got to be able to understand that I operate the tool. The tool does not operate me. And get the right instructor to work with you. We would love to have you here. Hop in the plane, get your butt here, and we'll set you up. We'll set you up with a couple good classes. Cool thing about that is when the instructor gets done with you, he's going to give you that full foundation from the gun all the way to your feet and get you comfortable running that pistol. A lot of times it's hard to make a decision on what pistol you like until you get to shoot them. One of the great things about our company is everything in our store, all the firearms that are in here, they are our training firearms that we let people use on a regular basis to make sure they're picking the right pistol for them. And then at the end, we just order them one. With the manufacturers the way they are nowadays, and we don't need to stock 50 different items. We're not I wouldn't consider me a gun store. I'm gonna carry the top quality products, American made, manufacturers that's gonna give you the best ability for you. And then we look at the student and say, "Hey, this is a good gun for you. This isn't a gun for you." I mean, I talked to a couple people last week. We had the revolver live a couple weeks ago, and we have ladies that come here all the time that bought a revolver that never pulled the trigger. And those are the little things that we would hopefully, when you get to a good instructor, they're gonna walk you through a ton of stuff to get you comfortable. A lot of women are told that they can only shoot a revolver, which is bullshit. That's not real. Women can do anything a man can do. When it comes to shooting, I mean, most women are a lot better shot than men, anyways, because women want to do it right. They want to do it perfect. They don't want to mess up. And men tend to rush through things once in a while. Give me 20 men to train. Uh, I'd, I would rather have 20 women to train. And then, because women are a lot easier to train. But, some guys are good students. I'm not going to say they're all like that. But yeah, hey, patience, persistence, remembering, mastering a handgun and shooting takes time, dedication. Keep practicing, analyzing your shots, and making sure you're making the necessary adjustments. And how do you make the necessary adjustments? Well, you got to know you're making a mistake to begin with. The target will tell you, but if you put this thing together and kind of work through your fundamentals, how many there are videos after videos after videos on our YouTube channel. We have a women's playlist, we have a men's playlist, we have tactical playlist, we have all kinds of stuff that gets the fundamentals out there to get you seeing what you're doing. Sooner or later, after you start feeling a good shot, that felt good, this shot felt good, that shot felt weird. Well, those weird shots are pulls. Those weird shots are anticipations. Those weird shots, a good shot feels good, a bad shot feels bad, and that's the easiest way I can tell you about it. And and the more you do it, the more you're going to feel it. Talking about diminishing, right? Shooting is so diminishing. There are so many different things you can do and not do that will cause you to be inaccurate with a pistol. All right. So what I've done is I've pulled up 2 thumbnails of 2 videos that I think that would help you tremendously, and I gave you the links on them right there on our YouTube channel. And these 2 videos, I would watch these back to back, and they are on pretty much on the same page. How to aim a pistol. This talks about the 3 dot system. This talks about slow trigger engagement. This is a good We get a lot of comments about this video, and if you had an opportunity to watch this video, I would highly recommend you do so. And the one below it is that line drill. I told you about that vertical and horizontal line. And both of these things will help you understand where the weapon needs to be and where your sights need to be more proficient with a pistol. Proper sight alignment and proper sight picture, slow engagement of the trigger, all these little things add up to becoming a better shooter. And these are on our YouTube channel. I would highly recommend you watch them. They are great. I'm not saying that people from YouTube that have watched the video have really gave us a rounding applause on these things. Now, the line drill itself is pretty simple and easy. I told you about that. These are great drills you can do at the range too. Taking a black piece of paper, a black marker, and a white piece of paper, and just try to keep those shots above that line. If you look at that line drill, you have that horizontal line. If you're aiming at that horizontal line and you're impacting below that line, that tells you you're pulling the trigger. You're looking over the pistol. The gun's at some line. You should be impacting that line or just above that line with your bullets. If you're above that line with your bullets, not missing the line, but just barely connecting with that line, then you got it pretty well there. But if you're aiming at that line and you got the weapon out in front of you, and all your bullets are impacting below that line, you got to look at your trigger engagement. You got to look at your sight alignment, and you got to look at how you're gripping that weapon. And are you pulling the trigger or pressing the trigger? Because all four of those will cause you not to connect with that black line. And vice versa on that horizontal line, the vertical line, on the horizontal line, you can work that line up and down, but make sure you're not using your wrist to run that line. Make sure you use your waist to aim that line. Remember, we do not aim a pistol with our weight with our wrist. We aim a pistol with our waist. And these two videos will give you a ton of education, and you can watch these on a regular basis. Keep them, and it will show you all the things you're doing wrong with a pistol. In conclusion, I hope these 10 tips help you understand why you shoot low. Shooting is not complicated, it's complex. Putting it all together will increase your accuracy. Thanks for watching our podcast. Make sure you tune in every Tuesday night and for another informative show. Please don't forget to hit the bell icon, the like, the subscribe button, and every time we upload a video or upload any of our YouTube stuff or any of our other stuff, you guys will be the first to know. Listen, it's very important for me to understand what you guys want to see and hear. And if you have any comments or comp any ideas of what you want us to do the next show on, we would love to help you in any way we can. This video that we put together today, the video we did yesterday, why you wanted to get your concealed, this PowerPoint presentation put together, these are all comments from students. These are all comments from subscribers asking, help me solve my problem. And that's all I did this for. We started this many years ago to educate, motivate, and entertain. And I hope we've done that. If you find any value in anything that we've done tonight, there are a couple things you can do for me. One, we do have our memberships for as low as $2.99. You can sign up and support us on a monthly basis. Don't have to do that. We're not asking you for to do that, but if you wanted to do that, you could. You could always do one of those little comments that you do that, or you could tell a friend or a family member and let them know about our great channel. All right, so let me pop out of this, get back into my beautiful face. There I am. We're gonna hit some of these comments here. Hope you're doing wonderful tonight. I hope that was informative to you. Go ahead and give me an idea where you guys are coming from, and let's see what comments we have this evening. All right, Mr. Jim, how you doing, buddy? Mr. Jim's going to be coming next Monday to say hi. Patty, his wife, is watching tonight. Hello, Patty. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys. I actually took my schedule and opened it up, so I did not schedule anything for that Monday around that 10 o'clock you talked about. I'm hoping that we can get together and maybe get you in the back there and give you some ideas on how to become a little bit more proficient. Jim told me him and his wife are new to firearms and they've been watching the show for a while. And he's going to be in the Orlando area, which is a little far for us. So we're going to take advantage of him maybe hitting us up so we can get him into the show here. Maybe do a video or something like that while he's here. That's awesome. All right. Well, good to see you, Jim. All right, Mark, thank you very much for being on the call. Chris, as always, you're the greatest. Natasha's mom. Hey, hey, I'm glad you're on there. Why do you shoot low? Because you're a lousy shot. Chris, you're not a lousy shot, buddy. You're not a lousy shot. Now you can let this hardworking man go home and enjoy some tacos. Yeah, yeah, it is Tuesday night. Tuesday night is taco night. Papa Weasel. Right. Beautiful, buddy. You're awesome. Always loyal. Thank you, buddy. Tom, dry firing training with a laser bullet helped me a lot. Beautiful. That's good. That's awesome. All right. We got one from John here. Let's see what John has to say. John says, how different it will 124 grain hollow points shoot compared to 124 range rounds out of a 9 mm. Both are same brand of pistol Pete ammo. You know what? I haven't found that much impact difference. Sometimes your 124s and if you got a bullet that's a 115, I know 115s are a lot hotter, John, but I would just track. I would always, anytime I'm putting a hollow point in my weapon, I wanna make sure I shoot them. So I would recommend you run to the, range and take 2 magazines and try to find there shouldn't be much impact. Now we sell Pistol Pete here at our store, buddy, and I can tell you that I haven't had much problems with any of Pistol Pete's stuff, and they hit almost in the same hole. Pete, they're clean ammo. It is something that I would highly, just tell you to try. I don't foresee there's gonna be that much difference, impact difference at all, if any. But let us know. Uh, there we go. Let's see what Greg has to say here. What do you feel about the optimal distance to zero red dot? What what would you hold be for shorter and longer distance? Well, that's a good question, buddy. I did a video on how to sight a red dot in. I always recommend, like, we have 31 feet all the way to our back here. So we always sight our red dots in at that distance. And when we kind of think about impact, I am going to use a paper plate, 6-inch paper plate, and I would, when I got that down to a science where I'm hitting at 31, or you could do 25 if you want, or whatever distance you think is going to be best for you, or what distance you get at your range. I would make sure those are in, because technically from zero out, you're not going to get that much difference. There's not that ton of travel as it goes, but I would always make sure I'm gonna sight my red dot in, Greg, at the furthest distance that I think I'm gonna need. Because at the end of it, if you kind of think about, 6-inch paper plate is really smaller than the 8-inch paper plate that we use for center mass when we're practicing on a regular basis, or you take an IDPA target, which is a 12-inch circle in the center. So, red dots are not designed for bullseye. They're not designed for crosshairs. They're designed for quick acquisition in a very quick manner. As long as you're point of impact is close to where the bullet's gonna be, you shouldn't be any real difference until you get past the distance of your furthest. Because remember, a bullet doesn't fly in a straight line, it flies in an arc, and we gotta get to that arcy position where it's about to fall on the other side. Like rifles or pistols, they all arc up. Your barrel is below your line of sight, and that bullet has to impact your line of sight sooner or later. That's your first zero. And then the second zero is when it falls back on the line. And then red dots, you're not shooting past. For defensive purposes, if you're shooting past 35 or 40, you probably should be shooting at the bad guy at that distance. So that 21, the 15, the 5, the 3, those yards like that should be easy. So that's why we take it all the way out. We cited a ton of red dots for students, and we do that. We sight it out the furthest distance we can. And then we do impacts in front here. We do it start at 3, 5, and 7. And there's 3, 5, and 7 yards. The bullet's almost in the same hole. I mean, there's if you're engaging the trigger properly, it shouldn't be that much difference. Great question, Greg. I hope I answered it for you, buddy. We appreciate you watching tonight. All right, cool. All right, one more. I put 9 through the shot a little low at first until I adjusted. Okay. I put 5 through. Well, that has a lot to say. Is it you, or is it the bullet itself? And that's kind of where we need to get our head down, because it's 124 and 124. That's the weight of the bullet. That's the weight of the head. We're gonna say that it was the bullet, and you adjusted by what? Did you adjust by moving your sights, or did you slowly press the trigger more, or were you using a red dot and you adjusted that way? Definitely 9 millimeter hollow points. You always need to sight them in, because they are lighter bullets sometimes. I would tell you that if you're trying to cover a quarter with a red dot, then, what do you want? What accuracy do you want? I guess is what you want, John. I mean, obviously, we're trying to impact this. The dot's designed for accuracy purposes, but not bullseye. It's for defensive purposes as much as possible. But I appreciate you giving me the heads up. Uh, Follow through with that. I'd like to know more about that if you could. All right. Looks like we got to that hour. I always wonder how what I'm gonna say or what I'm gonna do, but I keep blabbering on, so it always works for us one way or the other. So if you guys are looking for something fun to do, hit that YouTube channel, watch some of those videos. There are a ton of them on there. We appreciate it very much. Don't forget that I told you guys this last week that we have been losing some subscribers that said that they got taken down from subscribed, and every time they go in, they have to subscribe again. So don't be shy and hit that subscribe button before you leave. It would be great. That way you can make sure, because every time you hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that bell icon, sooner or later, you're going to get notification. Now, I don't know how many of you got a notification of the live tonight. That would be good comment for us if you would let us know which if you got a notification of the live starting. That would help tremendously. And a lot of people aren't really getting the notification like they had in the past. So hope this live podcast tonight helped you a little bit. Get out to the range, shoot a little bit, become more proficient with a pistol. You are your first line defense. Never forget that. Uh, okay, well, okay, Ralph Stevens just checked in here. Many thanks. Ralph says, many thanks. Just got back from the range. We'll watch from the beginning. I missed. Thanks, Ralph. Appreciate that, buddy. How was range time, pal? And Ralph got a notification. Thank you. Jim, I did get a notification. Beautiful. That's awesome, Jim. I appreciate that. That helps me out tremendously. That makes me feel better. I hope the gun thing, the gun world nowadays, everyone's kind of like, we're not. They've been very, very nice about. They haven't really done anything. They demonetized a couple things I've done, but you know, you know, when it comes to the black rifles and things like that, becomes challenging. One time we tried to clean a weapon on an alive, and that didn't work very well. They kicked us out immediately, so we had to learn from our deals there. So, um, but it is Tuesday night. Tuesday night equals taco night, and it is. Doug Lambert. Hey, Doug, how you doing, buddy? Good to hear from you. Doug got a notification. There we go. All right, so we're starting to get it. So let's go up top here. Say goodbye to everybody. I really appreciate every time we do these, and it's getting better and better every week. We appreciate you very much, Mark J. God bless you, man. Thank you, buddy. Thank you for being on the live podcast. We appreciate you, Chris. As always, my friend. Chris is one of our members. He has been a member here at the range. He's a member on our YouTube channel as well, and we appreciate you very much. Natasha's our first member. She was awesome. Natasha's mom, is always there watching the stuff. Jim, looking forward to seeing you, buddy, next week. Hopefully everything goes well with you. The weather's beautiful right now here in Florida. We had a rainstorm over the weekend, but it looks like it's going to be clear for you and Patty next week. Why don't you touch base with us when you get into Florida? Maybe send me a message. Let me know that morning when you get into Florida. Get into Fort Myers or Cape Coral, and we'll kind of work that out for us. Papa Weasel, as always, buddy, you are the best. Tom, we appreciate you very much. Keep up that dry firing. We appreciate that. John, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. We appreciate that. Great, always comment. Danny Schultz he's an awesome dude. He's my right hand man. Greg Cooper, thank you very much. As always, my friend. Jim, there we go. Ralph, Jim, no. Okay, all right. And Jim, Doug Lambert, thank you very much. Tom, thank you. Ray Cooper, thank you. Until next week, guys, I want to tell you three things. God bless, be safe, and remember, you are your first line of defense. If you need anything, any technical questions or any problem with shooting, you can always email us. You can always send me a message. We respond to all of our comments, whether they're good or bad. We try to do that as much as possible. Until next time, guys, I love you very much. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for making a small family owned business part of your family. And we appreciate you being with us every night. There's 14 people on the live right now, and we are so blessed to have you guys. Until next time, I'm going to play out the end music here and get us out of here because we're going to go get some tacos. God bless you guys. In screen.